everybody, and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me today, I have a Jer.
Hello.
And a Wheeler.
Bonhomme.
Reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support at the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. 'Tis the season, and as such, we want to talk about our top 5 red-green cards. Now, I did a little bit of Googling, a little bit of scry falling, a little bit of gathering, and there are 215 cards that are both red and green. And I'm really curious to find out amongst the three of us how many overlapping we have for our top 5. So it's worth mentioning for our top 5, this is not an argument about the cream of the crop, the best ones, but we want to talk about ones that are near and dear to ourselves and that, of course, have a home in the format. So it's a neat mixture between, our personal view on the format and our personal spice. Let's just jump right into it. Jer, start us off with your number 5, and we'll count down, and we'll switch up the format this time. We'll all talk about our 5th, discuss, and then move down the list.
All right. My number 5 is Rurik Thar, the Unbowed. It's a 6-mana 6/6 for 4 red-green. It's an ogre warrior, so 1 relevant creature type, ogre tribal. It has vigilance and reach, 2 good keywords, especially stapled to a 6/6 that's going to block basically every flyer in the format, and has vigilance, so it gets to attack and block. On that note, it attacks each turn if able, so you're not able to misplay and not attack with it. And then it says whenever any player casts a non-creature spell, Rurik Thar deals 6 damage to that player. So if it resolves against a blue deck, you win. If it resolves against a combo deck, you win. If it resolves against a creature deck, you probably win. So yeah, good one. Costs a lot of mana, but you get rewarded for your ambition in casting it.
Now, what's interesting is we're not doing honorable mentions today, but had we done an honorable mention, Rurik Thar would have been there. I don't know if I've ever resolved one, but I sure have died to it a lot.
Yeah, that's mostly the side I'm on as well.
Who is playing Rurik Thar? Let's talk about that real quick.
Classically, it's played in hoof decks, but I've also dabbled in go bigger monsters decks that cast some big dummies, and just out and out ramp decks that have Black Lotus and stuff in them. So having a bunch of sort of 6 drops is good as well to sprinkle in with the 9 drops that you're actually trying to kill people with. But mostly
right.
hoof.
That's fair. All right. Well, my 5th place is also a large lad, and mine is a little bit bigger and a little bit dumber, and I think I'm the only person playing it. Let me introduce you to Borborygmos Enraged. 8 mana legendary Cyclops gets you a 7/6 with trample, costing you a very modest 4 red, green. And it says, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, and then discard a land card, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. I play this almost exclusively in lands. Maybe as a reanimation target, but there's just better creatures now.
It's pretty good when you shallow grave it or Goryo's Vengeance it.
Oh, yeah.
Goryo's Vengeance is most of my experience with it in the format. The old tit and fins.
It's tough in lands, because once you have 8 mana, ideally you should have already won. And how many lands do you have in hand? But it does all the things you kind of want it to do, and you have a little bit more wiggle room in just a red-green lands deck as opposed to if you're doing a 4 or 5 color version. But I can't talk about red-green and not talk about my big boy Boar over here.
What did you? This card has a lot of nicknames. I don't know about.
You don't like Boar?
Well, Papa Gizmo is the Victoria nickname that I've always heard with this one.
Papa Gizmo for sure is.
Really? I've never heard Papa Gizmo.
Papa Gizmo? Yeah, it's kind of if you just mumble its name. But Boar?
That's the first 6 letters.
Yeah, we're not saying you're wrong.
Yeah. Well, you mean it's the first 3 letters twice.
Very good. You're also not wrong. All right, let's talk about your 5th place here.
So my 5th place, a heck of a Magic card. Some people might be familiar with it. Definitely the best red-green card in the format. It's called Renin 6.
Oh, yeah.
And I enjoy playing with Renin 6. I don't particularly enjoy playing against it a lot of the time. And it's absurdly powerful. And I'm kind of numb to it now, in that it's just all right, this is the life we're living. But I felt like I wanted to include it because it's it turns out this card's so good, it finds homes in decks that aren't even like red-green when you think about it.
Or red or green, like, splash it in Esper.
This card is so good in eggs, which sounds really stupid to say aloud, but it's a permanent that can it can rebuy your Tolarian Academy when people have blown it up, or like a rebuy Tolaria West so that you can find like a Lion's Eye Diamond if you've already found Black Lotus, or vice versa. It pings Thalia, Idiot Bird, like it cleans out a lot of annoying things. And it's also a permanent that you can like very easily loop it coming into play, right? Like it comes into play, it pings them for 1. You can get rid of it in some way, shape, or form in your deck. And then when you second Sunrise, you get it back, and then it pings for 1, etc.
Get it back with a nice Savine's Wreck.
Yeah, it's in the category of cards that are like, when you play with it at its best, it's kind of just boring because it's so good. Like you just strip lock people or something. But because it's so good, you can take advantage of it in more niche applications, and then it's just super exciting, right? It's one of those things like if you Teferi your own ETB creature, that feels cool and good.
I definitely played this in like my rug, like Planeswalker Time Walks deck, and like I would legit play it and my opponents wouldn't realize what I was playing, and then I just ultimated it and win the game immediately, and they wouldn't realize what happened. Like, because most of the time it's not, the ultimate isn't really all that big of a threat. Like it's bad, but it's not just gonna win the game. But in that deck, it just wins the game.
Yeah, like maybe I'm just getting older, but like my favorite part about it is like, oh yeah, I get to hit all my land drops.
All right, let's move on to number 4 here. Jer, start us off.
Number 4, I have sort of like the older version of Ben's 5th choice. I have Domri Raid. It was like the first red-green planeswalker that I really had a strong bond with.
Now, there's a lot of Domris. Can you read the abilities of this one specifically?
Yeah, this one's the first Domri. So it's 3 mana, 1 red-green, 3 loyalty. It has a +1 where you look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Then -2, target creature you control fights another target creature. And -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control have double strike, trample, hexproof, and haste, otherwise known as you win the game. Yeah, this was like, like when it came out, it was the nightmare scenario for turn 2 on the play off an elf against a control deck. You'd just like, your opponent played an elf, you're playing blue-white control, so you don't have removal spells, and then you play your land hoping they respect the spell pierce that isn't in your deck, and then they just slam Domri and you're like, yep, next game.
Hey, you're just naming hoof cards.
It's definitely one of the cards. I mean, to catapult off that comment too, Serge, it's one of the cards that like during that period of hoof really solidified like red as the best splash color, or just like instead of playing, because it started out as mono green, it's like maybe we need this Rurik Thar, well we can play Domri now, and I guess Dragon Lord of Tarka is pretty large, and that kind of stuff. This card's an absolute nightmare.
Yes,
it's so good.
Yes.
All right, well, I went for some anti-hoof tech. So for my 4th card, I chose Fire Spout. Now, Fire Spout is a 3-mana sorcery. It costs 2 generic and a red-green hybrid. Fire Spout deals 3 damage to each creature without flying if red was spent, and 3 damage to each creature with flying if green was spent to cast it. And if you're just playing like Pyroclasm.deck, around the time that Hoof was really starting to pop off, I was doing a slightly worse tear, running a lot of like Pox and Stacks decks. And as Hoof got better and better, I had to start putting in more and more lower removal. And this card was fantastic, because you hit your Pyroclasm, and then what? And one of the advantages of this over a lot of the other cards you have access to, like Anger of the Gods, is how flexible and how easy it is to cast. It only takes a single pip, and it's pretty flexible on red and green, as opposed to 1 red, which is normally what you need to cast for those 3 damage sweepers.
You can get a little tricky with it too. Like I've seen Chris Sutherland cast it in like tempo decks where his board is like Delver of Secrets, of Vendilion Clique, and he just doesn't put in on any green, and he just like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, you just get to wrath the groundlings
it can be kind of cute and one-sided with it. I like it.
fly over with the birds.
I've
Yeah.
definitely done it, cast it against, it might have been Chris Sutherland for the opposite mode, like just green, like neglected to put in red and just killed all his derpy flyers.
Heck yeah. Wheeler, what you got in fourth place?
Number 4 is a card that is, I got a spoiler alert. I don't have Bloodbraid Elf on my list because that's not my type of magic, which makes this card kind of weird to include, but it's Huntmaster of the Fells.
Interesting.
This card is just, it's such a feel good it makes me feel warm when I play it and when I play against it,
So what does it do?
Huntmaster of the Fells it's a flip card, so it's a transform card.
Double-faced card.
Yeah. It's 2 red and green for a 2/2 human werewolf. When it comes into play or transforms into the flip side, or sorry, when it comes into play or transforms back into this side, Huntmaster, you make a 2/2 green wolf token and you gain 2 life. Then it has the werewolf text. So at the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, you transform it. It becomes Ravager of the Fells, which is a 4/4 with trample that says whenever you transform into Ravager of the Fells, you deal 2 damage to target opponent and 2 damage to up to 1 target creature that player controls, and then the whole werewolf flip back. So it can really run amok in a stalled board. Like it's very good at ripping through board clears. Like if you're just top decking against someone, if you play this and your opponent doesn't play a land, and they played like just a land next turn, it's like over. You get you build up your board, you clear, get your little bit of a life cushion. You can start taking things apart, get it out of bolt range, but it's just good magic. It's just, I don't know, it feels good when Huntmaster is around. It makes me really happy to play Highlander, because then I get to tendrils them out. No, but it's just like it's just like if somebody ancient tombs into Huntmaster, that's okay by me.
You just start clapping. You're like, you know what? That's good, clean magic.
Yeah, go off. That's fine.
This is good, honest magic.
Yeah, that's good beats, right?
All right. What you got in third place, Jer?
Well, in third place, I have my second favorite card on the list. It's Gorklan Rampager.
Oh, yeah.
2 red green for a 4/4 with trample, which is its alternate cost. And then its main cost is red green and blood rush, which means you discard it and then target attacking creature gets +4/+4 and gains trample until end of turn. And notably, you're not casting anything, so it's uncounterable sort of pump spell, which can really get people if they're like holding up a counter spell and they're waiting on it. But
this is like the iconic choo-choo card of the format. I love this so much. Do you think this is like a uniquely Highlander card?
No, it does see play in some other formats, especially since Historic sort of came in and Pioneer. It saw some play there as well. I don't know if it is in Historic yet, actually.
It's not in Historic, but Pioneer, yeah.
And it was sort of a turning point in Highlander, at least I noticed, in that people started getting got for holding their removal spells to the last second. Like, you'd be attacking, and then it'd be like, okay, before damage, bolt your thing, and you're like, no, take an extra 4. And they're like, oh, I'm dead. And you're like, yep, should have done that earlier.
Right. Killed it before combat, right?
Yeah, because it can only target attacking creatures, so as soon as you turn your thing sideways, their lightning bolt is no longer effective.
It's really good insight. My third place is a card that was very near and dear to my heart when I first started playing the format. I was playing against my buddy John, who just loved playing blue-white control. And I was like, I can't beat control. I can't beat control. How can I beat control? Well, let me introduce you to my little friend, Vexing Shusher. This is a 2-mana 2/2 Goblin Shaman for Red-Green Hybrid, Red-Green Hybrid. It says, this spell can't be countered, and for Red-Green Hybrid, target spell can't be countered. And I think this card has maybe fallen out of favor as well. Maybe just the mid-range decks, like the power level of creatures has gone up such that you don't just want to play a 2-mana 2/2, especially if it's not against control. But there was a time where this was the secret tech. This blew my mind. Like, how can they print something like this? How can control decks beat this card?
It's so frustrating.
So I had to give it a spot on the list. Is Goblins even playing this? Maybe depends on the meta.
I've seen a couple of people, if they're still playing like mono red, or if they went red green. But like even then, I feel like the next time you see this card is if like there's a big push for like Shaman Tribal or something.
Oh no.
I played this card like way back in the day,
Right?
like 2008 Lander or like 2009, and played it in Heartbeat because I got so tired of people countering my spells. They kept countering my like Mirari's Wake, and I was like, come on.
Never again. Get in there, Shusher.
Playing this, I mean, before I was on Declaration of Naught, which is a very awful card. I don't even want to talk about that. Yeah, it was bad time. I justified it to myself because like I can Enlighten Tutor for it. This is worth the 8 points for Enlighten Tutor or whatever people think Stone Age Highlander was. But yeah, this card's a real pisser.
I thought I might be. Am I the only? Tell me afterwards if I'm the only person who put this on the list. But I figured this card needed to be talked about, especially for talking about some of the strongest red-green cards in the format. All right, Wheeler, on to you. Third place.
My third place is one of the few planeswalkers that I'm like super jazzed to play with at all times again. It's Zenegos the Reveler.
Good. I'm glad. I thought you were going to put that one, so I put Domri. I'm glad.
Yeah, I was going to put Domri, and I was like, Zenegos is just so cool. It's like, okay, so to clarify, because there are two Zenegoses from this era too. It's a planeswalker. It's Gruul. It's 4 mana. It's 3 loyalty. It's +1. You add X mana and any combination of red or green, where X is the number of creatures you control. So it's +1 is a Gaia's Cradle that can add some combo of red and green. It has a 0, which is create a 2/2 red and green satyr creature token with haste. And -6 is exile the top 7 cards of your deck. You put any number of creatures or land cards from among them onto the battlefield. I don't know if I've done that more than like twice.
Well, they're not really dead before that, right?
Yeah, they're usually just dead. Zenegos is great. It's, again, kind of in that camp of like what Domri brought, and Huntmaster, honestly, for the hoof decks and like certain mid-range decks, where if you can sneak this in against the control decks, especially back when the format was very board wipe heavy, this is so annoying. Like, you're just making hasty beaters over and over again, and it's so frustrating to deal with. And it's just also like that +1 is absurd. Yeah. Like, it's Gaia's Cradle, and you get red, which in hoof, right, especially back then, or even in like a Gruul mid-range deck, right, you might use all your red mana up early and getting to play, and you bolt a thing and then play a Zenegos. Probably not the right spell order, but who cares? But yeah, it's just being able to get that flexibility too. The cards might not be what it was in 2020. It's not exactly at the same level of the same status, but still just a great card.
So many people talk about hoof as being the scariest card in the hoof deck, and uncountable how many games are actually done just one off the back of like a turn 2 or turn 3 Zenegos or Domri. That's what killed you in that deck, because while you're fighting through Zenegos, while you're fighting through Domri, it's giving you the time and the acceleration to set up that hoof, or just killing you outright, right?
Yeah, when hoof got to that spot in development, like the actual scariest card was just Raphaelos.
Yeah.
Because you had enough like Rurik Thar cards or Zenegoses that, if you get to turn 3 or turn 2, God forbid, Primeval Titan or, Tooth and Nail, you're probably dying. But like now they just have a bunch of other options that are just totally fine. It's like, oh no, I'm dead on turn 4 instead of turn 3. So
ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Second place, Jer, what do you have?
In second place, I have Ben's 5th place, Renin 6. It was too good not for me not to include it. But like Ben, I'm sort of numb and at this point disinterested to put it at 1, which is where it deserves to be. So I put it at 2 because it's a biased list and I can do that. Yeah, it's an insanely powerful card, and it's definitely more fun to have in your hand than on the table across from you. I don't know. It just leads to a lot of dumb games. Like, there are sweet things you can do with it. Like, I loved playing it in that Rug Planeswalker Time Walk deck where like I was actually like working to get the ultimate, and that was a legitimate win condition, and that was really interesting. But like just having it in a deck where like you're never going to miss a land drop and your opponent can't ever play a 1 toughness creature, or you're playing it in a deck that has 6 strip mines and Glacial Chasm or Glacial Chasms in the deck, is like, it's just not that fun on either side.
Can I share a confession?
Yep.
All right. So, real talk, I have never cast Renin 6, and I have never played against Renin 6.
I think you just gave Ben the official Lance pilot crown.
Oh,
That is
Yeah, that
I don't have a joke. I'm just I'm actually kind
I don't know what
I'm
happened.
genuinely speechless. Genuinely.
So I have, every time I've tried to check any store other than ordering online, I've never been able to find an R6. So it's never made it into any of my decks just recently. And somehow all of the Magic I've played recently, no one has ever sleeped it up and cast it against me. None of the tournaments I went to, never. Like even when we were going back to Magic Fests, I have never cast or sat across from an R6.
You mean a W6?
Well, sure. You don't pronounce
That's-
the
no,
W was
no.
silent, Wheeler. The W was silent.
I get that because I'm not. Look, I didn't go in on you for the.
All right, fine. Yes. Roast me for the W6. Sure, why not?
That's it. Are you sure? I swear to that I don't. There's no reason for you to lie. I've never known you to be the kind of person
So here's
to
the
lie.
other interesting thing. When we did the set review, when Renin 6 was first spoiled, you gave it to me, and I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of meh on this card. And you
I
and
remember.
Jared were both like, what's wrong with you? This card's broken. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really see it. And then like 3 sets after that, everyone's been like, say, Serge, has your opinion changed? I'm like, not really. And now it's, how long has it been out? 3 years? I don't know.
That's
There's
also a
just-
scary thought.
Yeah, there's just something missing. I'm sure it'll get corrected shortly. And I'm sure the comments are about to roast me. Let's move on with our lives.
All right.
Let me talk about my second place card, which is something that we have touched upon, but nobody's actually claimed, and that is Bloodbraid Elf. My second favorite red-green card is Bloodbraid Elf. If you don't know, 4 mana, which is 2 red and a green, gets you a 3/2 elf berserker with haste and with cascade. Now, I've only cast this a couple of times myself. It's not really the style of deck I play in Highlander, but this card is just so iconic for me when it comes to talking about Gruul and just the turns when you're sitting across from a red player and they're like turn 3 and they're like, okay, use my elf, 2 red, okay, Bloodbraid Elf, cool, hit Burning Tree, Emissary, cast this other 2-drop, burn you, and yeah, that 4 mana just did 7 damage to you. What up, gamer? Your turn. I love it. I love it.
I mean, there's literally a deck in our format named after it that is also in another format. This like
4-color blood.
it's the blood in
yeah.
4-color blood.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic card, and it's still, you know, maybe when it gets included, there's definitely just a pinch of, oh, I really want to cast Bloodbraid Elf. But it's not as if it's on the bench, like, entirely. Like, it still is just oopsie doopsie. Here's a 3-drop, and I'm going to kill your Planeswalker.
it's sort of one of those cards that you can include in the bigger decks too, because it just has so much value attached to it, and it matches up really well against a lot of the decks that are typically good against the go bigger decks too. Like I'll often include it in ramp decks because it's a roadblock that pressures planeswalkers, is good against counterspells, and will likely hit a ramp spell anyways. So you can sort of, it's like more versatile than a lot of the other like just good stuff cards.
It does feel better to hit a ramp spell than to hit like an elf in an aggro deck, certainly.
I have a very good Bloodbraid Elf story about Bloodbraid Elf flexibility, that if we need a powerful magic for next episode, I can save it.
We do, and that sounds great.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, if you listen to this chronologically, give it wait for the next episode. I got a good one.
See you in a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. All right, Wheeler, what's your second place?
My second place is Jer's third place. It's Gore Clan Rampager. Yeah, this card's great. it's one of these cards that is just like, to me, it really pushes the difference between Gruul and Red, and how like there are these seemingly small changes in your archetypes that actually just have massive implications, right? Because like if you look at Red and Gruul and Camlander, and to some people they're like, it's the same. I'm just dying on turn 3 or 4 both, like, or dying on turn 4 both games, right? But Gruul is just a bit faster, and it's just a bit or more explosive, I guess. And it's more explosive because it has, you know, Colossal Mites and Gore Clan Rampager. And it also gets the, as Jared put it, the alternative casting cost, where you can also just play it as a 4/4. In your deck that probably is rocking double Moxen, might have a mana crypt in there. And a 4/4 trample is scary, right? Like, that's kind of terrifying.
Oh yeah, that'll kill you.
Yeah, it's like it's like the original adventure creature, except you never get to cast the 4/4 side because the game's over before you get to. But it's cards big. It's the genuine like test of skill in playing with it and against it, and well, it pairs really well with Berserk. So good card.
All right, and our number one card. Start us off, Jer.
My number one card is kind of cheating, but it definitely counts. It's the beautiful pig, Flinttooth Boar.
Oh, yeah, that counts. That counts.
1 and a green for a 2/2. So you may be saying no red mana in the mana cost, but wait. Flinttooth Boar gets +1/+1 as long as you control a mountain. Red land. Don't tell me it's colorless, it's red. And red mana symbol : Flinttooth Boar gains haste until end of turn.
Its color identity is red-green, so it counts.
Exactly.
I love that you included this.
Couldn't not. Number one on the list. Number one in our hearts.
Real
Beautiful
quick,
pig.
why?
Why?
Yeah.
What? I'm so confused.
Just making sure, just checking. If people don't understand the beauty of the boar, the most beautiful of pigs.
Yeah, it's the greatest piece of magic art ever to.
It's literally just a pig. It's just a pig that's just in the where it lives is on
and it's
fire.
a great card.
Yeah, it's also good. But it's a pig.
I think the best part is we're not even being insincere. We legitimately love this card. It's just like, really? We're
Absolutely.
talking about some of the most powerful cards in Magic, and you're talking about an checks notes uncommon from M13.
I mean, you could be like, oh, it won all these events, and it's a good card. It's flexible. It's good in Mox deck. Blah blah blah. But like, all you need to hear is that it's the beautiful pig.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. My number one is a card that we've already talked about, and that is Huntsmaster of the Fells. I just want to echo some things that Wheeler was talking about already when we were talking about Huntsmaster before, but I just think this is such a cool card. It does a lot. There's so many words printed on this card, but it doesn't feel as oppressive as some of the 4-drops we've seen recently. Maybe it's because there's room for counterplay and there's still intelligent decisions you have to make, as opposed to if this card just had like 14 keywords printed on it.
Yeah, it's the best Uro you'll ever see.
And recursion, and I was like, it's no Uro, but I respect it a lot more.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a beautiful card, and I'm very proud of calling that my number one red-green card.
Dark Ascension Mythics, Arclight's Ascension aside, or whatever that awful card is, like between Huntmaster and Falconwrath Aristocrat, like, God, take me there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was
They're just so
peak Magic.
God.
I won so many standard matches with Falconwrath Aristocrat.
Yeah. Good vampire. Classic Gruul card, Falconwrath Aristocrat.
What's your number one, Wheeler?
My number one card is a hybrid card, admittedly. And it might be a little boring for some, but you got to give respect where respect is due. I have Manamorphos as my number one card.
That
Could have called
me.
that one.
Shocked, I'm sure. And honestly, it's not just because it's combo, but the amount of heavy lifting this card does. Manamorphos is like, I don't know, like a superhero. It's like Superman like holding up a building, like a skyscraper, to let like kids escape from it in an earthquake, That's a great analogy in my head. Probably won't track on audio. What I'm trying to say is that in storm decks and combo decks, sometimes your mana can be a little finicky. And Manamorphos is just like, don't worry, I got you. Let me help you out a little quick. Let me draw you an extra card too. Have you drinking enough water? You take your pills today? Like it's checking on you. It's always doing that. It's looking out for you. It's great if you have like spell duplicators, because then you're just up mana.
Actually, really quickly, what does it do?
Oh, it does everything. One, and then a hybrid red-green. It's an instant. You add 2 mana in any combination of colors, and you draw a card. That's it.
Seems good. It's basically free.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great card. Really good art, too. That's it. Yeah.
I've played it as a fair color fixer in Seismic Swans. A deck that wants to cast red, as well as blue, white hybrid that's base green. You're all shaking your heads at me.
I respect the hell out of that, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love to see it. I actually think the best deck it fits in, like the deck where it pulls the most weight, is in Blitz decks.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
absurd in Blitz decks.
Yeah.
It's like the apps, like anytime you draw basic mountain that you like have to put in those decks, it's miserable, but then you draw the Manamorphos and it just makes everything better.
The transform lands from Zendikar Rising definitely helped make navigating your blitz turns early on easy. But if you don't have that, Manamorphos is like, hey there, idiot. I know you tried to cast a Delver into a double red spell and then wanted to go Giant Growth, Giant Growth, Might of Old Corsa Berserk. That's not how magic works, but don't worry, I got you. And you're like, oh, thanks, Manamorphos.
So really quickly, 2 cards I want to talk about that I'm shocked that nobody mentioned. The first is Kessig Wolfrun. I'm surprised neither of you was like, honorary gold card. So Kessig Wolfrun is a land that adds a colorless, but for X and a Gruul, target creature gets +X +own gains trample until end of turn. I figured one of you two would have written about that or talked about that.
I just think it's a little past its prime. Like,
yeah,
that's fair.
Wolfrun used to be a sweet target in hoof decks, but even hoof decks have mostly issued it for just more reliable ways to win the game. And colorless lands really hurt in decks like that. Like every colorless land you put in hoof is a one lander you're gonna have to mulligan at some point.
Huntmaster and Zenegos were my like nostalgia hoof cards I'm adding to here too, because I haven't played red and hoof in like for the past year, but like it's just. And even then, those 2 cards can flex into like Pod and 4-color Blood or whatever. Huh. But yeah, I mean, also maybe I got infected one too many times when that was in standard. So
like, I'm done with it. All right. And the other card that I'm shocked nobody talked about is Burning Tree Shaman. This is a 3-mana 3/4 Centaur Shaman for 1, a red, and a green. And whenever a player plays an activated ability that isn't a mana ability, Shaman deals 1 damage to that player. I figured this would be on somebody's top 5.
This was my honorable mention.
Was it?
I love this card. This is Red Green Aggro was one of my first decks that I played. I first built Blue-White Control to the surprise of nobody, but the second deck I played was Red Green Aggro.
Like, you thought Rurik Thar would kill you. Burning Tree Shaman has killed me so many times.
And notably, it's an out to time vault. Like the amount of times people have tried to time vault me with this in play, and I'm like, yeah, you're shocking yourself every time you do that. Keep going. Nice.
Huh.
It's a card it's nice that it's still just very good, because I mean, it came out in 2004 or 2005. And it's not like a Mother of Ruins kind of utility creature, or just like we didn't know what we were doing kind of creature. It's just like an aggressive creature from that era that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Sweet design. Great. Yeah. Like the 4th toughness on that card is so vital, but so you just love to see it.
Ooh, symmetrical.
All right, my friends, any closing thoughts on Red Green in Highlander in 2020?
It's still good. Still run people over.
Kills people dead.
I still think the like quote unquote fair deck with the fastest clock is like the Red Green pump spells aggro deck. Like I think it probably kills on average on a like goldfishes faster than mono red.
There's just so many more it's just like, you know, all those 2s that show up in red like deal 2 damage, they swap those for 4.
Yeah.
And you also just get better creatures.
What's interesting to me is of 215 Gruul cards, we were asked to pick 15, and we came up with 12 unique ones because we doubled up on Huntsmaster, Renin 6, and
Gorg Clan Rampager.
Gorg Clan.
And Rampager. So not bad. Not a bad list. All right. With that, my friends, let's call it an episode. Thank you very, very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed. If there's any red-green cards that you're shocked that we omitted, please let us know in the comments down below. Reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support of the Patreon over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you very, very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.